see that with some of my projects. I'm an older, I mean, I can read how some people are they want to communicate through Facebook messaging or text messaging. And I'm an older lady in my we want to Skype, we want as much face-to-face time as possible. And they want to, like, email and all that stuff.
I think our society has gotten to,
and we lose a lot of communication.
So what are some of the psychological hurdles people face during this transition phase of change? Fear? Fear of the unknown.
Some people don't like to give up. They are afraid of losing power.
They're afraid they're going to lose their power, their prestige, their sort of place in the organization, so to speak. And I think as a result of that, they may feel that they may be made redundant. I once was invited to a breakfast with 120 of my friends at the Skyview Ballroom of the Marlboro Hotel in the city of Winnipeg on a fine September day, and we found out we were all being redundant. Didn't seem like a terribly good thing that morning. But if I wouldn't have gone to that coffee break, I wouldn't be here today. Things always work out, sometimes never the way we expect. Turned out a lot better for me. 12 people that kept their jobs are still not happy. Have coffee with them. Oh, you're so lucky because I got laid off of hospital pension. That was their problem. But again, it's a fear. What happens if the change results in they don't need what they don't need anymore? What am I going to do? Any other psychological hurdles people face? Anxiety in general. People are scared. What's really the implication here? How's this really going to work? It's our job as managers to help people through the transitional phase of change. To be able to try to explain to them and answer those questions for them, to allay those fears so that they're open to the change. And they're open to becoming part of the change. I think if we can bring people in and make people part of the change, that's what makes the difference. Getting ahead of myself again. So how can you help people over these hurdles? It's by talking about it. They need to know the why of change. Why are we doing this? What's the purpose? What's the benefits of this? What's the benefits of me personally? What's the benefits to the organization? If they understand the why, then they can accept the what. So why are we doing this? It's really important to explain the why. So think of a recent transition at work. Oh man, hang on. Let me get ahead of my slides. Think of a recent transition at work, a recent change at work. Was the change resistance? When was the last thing you did at the hospital?
Migrate to new EMR.
Migration to?
A new EMR system.
A new computer system. Oh, yeah. Okay, so how did that go?
According to Adele, it's the root of all evil.
I hate to tell you, but over the last 5 or 6 years, every time I've asked this question, I get the exact same answer, and every time I say, how did it go, I get exactly the same reaction, and someone always tells me it's the root of all evil. why do you think it went poorly?
All the resistance,
Pardon?
the resistance and the fear of the unknown.
I think it's the fear of the unknown. There was issues inherent to itself with the EMR that came to light during our process of implementing it
Yeah.
afterwards.
But aside from the issues, you know, let's think of the reaction of people, right? The resistance. Could they see the benefits of the new system? Pardon me?
I said, are there any benefits to this one?
See, and that's, it's hard to, we were chasing meaningful use, is why we changed. You know, we didn't have a choice. And I think some of those things are kind of intangible in your day-to-day existence, you know, they're hard to see.
Absolutely. I had one hospital that did the transition and it went really, really well. But they spent an awful lot of time before the transition even started, getting people psychologically ready for the transition. The whole process of how they set up the transition, the whole process of how they set up the training. We leveraged service excellence to help them through the transition phase of the change. So for them, it went very well. It was not without problems. It was not without huge glitches within the software. Oops, we thought that would work and it doesn't. And all of those kinds of things, and all of that stuff happened. But from the perspective of sort of attitudes around, a lot of that negative attitude, a lot of that resistance because of the way things were done, just didn't happen. And I think the reason for that was that constant face-to-face communication, the constant selling of why we need to do this, why it's important, and what difference is this going to make in our lives, and what difference is it going to make in our patients' lives, and how much better is it going to be for the hospital. So again, the more we talk about it, the better we get it. We need to understand a little bit about the dynamics of change, because change has 3 phases. And the first phase is the ending. And the ending, what we mean by the ending is that in any process, in a culture change, and this is really what service excellence is all about, it's a culture change. There's an end to the old culture. When did your old culture end? When you decided to embark on this journey. Because you said, we can no longer continue to do it this way. We have to do it better. So you made a conscious decision to change. The middle phase of change is the neutral zone, and sometimes it's called the dead zone. But I think this is the most exciting zone of all. It's sort of like, this whole change bit is like, it's like planting a garden. Last fall I came home from a trip, and my wife and daughters had just come back from Costco, and they said, we're planting a tulip garden. I said, define weed. They said, go get your shovel. So anyway, I dug the flower bed out, and under the instruction and direction of 3 supervisors, carefully, placed all these tulip bulbs and all this other stuff in the ground, covered it with dirt, and watered it. And nothing happened, because it was the fall, and nothing does happen. So sort of the ending of the old thing, we want to build this new garden. Let's go buy the bulbs. Dad will plant because he loves to do that. And then we finally got the plant. And we get the transition stage. So what's happening? We're watering it. The earth is black. Eventually, the snow covered it, and the snow will eventually melt. But what's happening? Stuff is still happening, even though we can't see it. The bulbs are slowly starting to absorb water. They're settling their roots down in the center of the bulb. That growth part of the bulb is getting ready to burst forth, and it's gathering nutrients and just getting ready. In the spring, when the snow's gone and the earth starts to warm, and that heat seeps down into the bulb, it electrifies it and gets it going. And one day you come home, there's one little green sprout coming up, and you come home a few days later, and there's 4 or 5, and a week later, there's this little sea of these little sprouts, and before you know it, you have this beautiful blooming garden. And it's the same thing as change. You get this neutral zone where sometimes you don't feel like you're making progress, you're wondering what you're doing. The neutral zone, which sometimes is called the dead zone, I hate that. This is the most exciting part. It's that transition zone, because here's the only rule that applies. If it's the right thing to do for the patient, let's do it. And you can try anything you want, and if it works, great, you implement it. If it doesn't work, you try to tweak it. If you can't tweak it, it doesn't work, you throw it out, you try something else till you find something that really, really works. And it's this is the exciting part of change, is when you can do things to make things better, and to drive you to when you finally get to some new beginning some point down the road. And sometimes it's hard to draw the line where that new beginning is, because you just phase into it, and you wonder, man, how did we do things 3 years ago? So change is exciting. And it has dramatic impacts on organizations, patients, their families, and the communities that they're in. So, the issue as always is, why do we resist change at work? Well, personally, I don't think we resist change. I don't think anybody resists change. It's just the way it is. I believe people are resistant to being changed. When I go home and I'm told, we're planting a garden, get your shovel, what little hair I have left stands up on end. Because I don't like being told. I would have preferred an approach to say, you know, honey, it's kind of a bland bed, it's kind of a lousy place in our garden. You were always complaining about it. The girls and I were shopping, we thought, maybe let's plant some tulips. What do you think? Sure, that's a great idea. We should go get some. You know what? We thought you might agree to that, so we've already got them for you. Then I would have said, I'll get the shovel. Right? So it's not about the change, it's about being changed. People are resistant to being changed when they're not involved in the process of change. That's why we need to talk about these things. You got stuck with putting in a new electronic medical record system. I get that. So, the approach that Holy Rosary used was, how is this going to benefit you, and how can you help us get involved in the change? And when changes come down, can we somehow make this part of us and be part of the change and get everybody involved and willingly in that change, so that change can happen? Because when we do that, when we get everybody involved, we get everybody on our side, the resistance to being changed goes away, and the change and the whole transition period, all of that stuff just flows smoothly. So I don't believe we resist change, but we resist being changed. Why do we have to do it this way now? Right? It's not complete.
Can you talk a little bit about, though, when we change and we know what's going to happen, what if we get to that change and it's not what we expected? Can you explain how the group can kind of do that?
It is not what you expected, depending on what it is. And I don't use EMR as an example, because that's, you're sort of stuck with something, you've got to make it work. But if you make a change, and the change isn't working for you, it's not what we expected, why not go back to the drawing board and just say, you know what, do we agree that this isn't what we thought would happen? So what do we need to do to make happen what we want? And to bring people in and to ask for suggestions and ideas. So now it becomes a collaborative effort of everyone. And when we come to a consensus on a decision to go forward, then everybody's bought into it. And it's not something that's brought down, it's something that we're doing now to move forward. So I think you've got to get people involved in that collaboration of making those changes, and especially if you do something that doesn't work. And gosh knows, I'm going to be honest with you, in service excellence, I've seen things not work in places. So we go back to the drawing board, and most of the projects that people work on, service improvement projects, we go back to the drawing board and try something else, and we'll find something that works. But it's that collaboration and involving people in that conversation, not just a group of 2 or 3 sitting down and saying, this doesn't work, we're going to try this now. Sometimes one of the arts of being a manager is asking the right questions of your staff so you lead them to your conclusion. To guide them to where we need to go. Did I answer your question? Okay, so change, excuse me, is always about loss. So what are people afraid of losing? The old way of doing things, control, their status in the organization, or maybe even their job in the organization. Stuff happens. But it always seems to work out. And again, the more we talk about this change, the more we talk about the transition, the whys and the benefits, the easier this becomes. We can't assume that our staff has the same vision that we do of the organization that we want to create. And we have to help put that in their minds and show them how they're part of that and how important their contribution is to, to making that happen. Peter Senge said, change leadership is not entirely a left-brain activity. Fact is, leading an initiative for change is more about emotion, relationship, and conversations. It's about helping people find meaning and purpose in their work. And there is no such thing as over-communicating. You cannot over-communicate. You can't talk too much about it. Here's some of the excuses that people use. It's not time yet, it's too premature. We'll tell them when the time is right. That's not news. We made the announcement last week. Did you read the memo? Get the email? Supervisors are supposed to spread the word. It's their job. Everything's up in the air. We don't know for sure why say anything and get people upset. If I share this information, I'll lose my power. People will get emotional if we talk about change. One of the two best bosses I ever worked for in my life was just totally open. Would talk about change, and we respected that because he was so open, and if he could tell us stuff, he did, and we were never apprehensive about change and things that were coming down. We knew about his openness. So the more you talk about these things, the more you share that, the better it is. So here's some ideas to help successfully implement change. Think through how you'll lead the change in your department or team. Service excellence initiatives planned change. Good outcomes come from well thought out design. This is not flavor of the month. You're not going to do service excellence for 3 years. You're going to do service excellence and become excellent. Never call this CLS customer service. Never call it Brian Lee customer service, and never mention my name. Why is that important? Because if you start talking in those terms, it's somebody else. You met the folks from Harrisburg when you were at the conference last week. The late and great and was my friend, Vince, who tragically passed away. I still can't believe it. Anyway. I remember having dinner with him one night, and I said to him, so I gotta ask you a question. And I knew him fairly well by this point, because I gotta be careful asking questions like this. I said, why'd you pick us over our competitors? Just out of curiosity. Why? He said, it's a great question. Vince had throat cancer, and his hospital didn't do that kind of surgery. And about 50, 60 miles away, there was a friendly, they're not actually competitors, they were actually collaborators, nonetheless, a competitor hospital who offered those kinds of surgical services. So he went to Heron Hospital for his surgery. And he says, I was at Heron Hospital, and he says, you could feel the palpable difference in terms of service and quality and the way people talked and communicated and dealt with each other. He said it was absolutely amazing. So I asked him, I said, so who's doing this? And they said, well, this is like service excellence. Who does it? They said, well, we do it. It's service excellence. He said, nobody knew who you were. That's why I chose you. I said, you got to explain that a little more. And he said, because they internalized it. It was their process. They became excellent. He says, you were the guy that they didn't even know who you were, the frontline staff, because they don't see you. He said, and it was so, and he said, they didn't talk about your company. They talked about their service excellence initiative. So that's how you need to present this to everyone. It's not about, it's about you. Because it's not flavor of the month. You're going to become excellent. The hospital, the very first hospital I did still does service excellence. That was a long time ago. Seek ideas from everyone. People will support change if they have a hand in development. And again, sometimes you can't do that. In terms of electronic medical records, how can they get people involved is, so how can we bring this to the hospital? How can we do the training? What would you like to see? So that's it's kind of a little out there, but it worked for them. And they'll go through transition faster. Keep explaining the change. People are scared about